One guy wanted me to have his babies for my genetics, and another was ready to put a ring on it after only a month of dating. Dating abroad was interesting. Hola a todos, soy Shawnie. Bienvenidos a mi canal. Hey y'all. If you are new here, make sure you hit subscribe because I know you clicked on this video to be all up in my business, all right? And if you're already part of the family, welcome back. Thank you so much for your continued support. I consider myself to be an equal opportunist when it comes to love. So while living abroad, I did explore the dating scene. Within my 3.5 years living abroad in Mexico, I dated 3 men with intention, and let's just say I learned a lot. In this video today, I'm going to be breaking down my experience as a Black woman who's single in her mid-30s dating abroad, starting with the 3 men I dated, the cultural differences, the cultural ignorance, dating a working class Mexican versus a more established Mexican, admiration versus fetish, and also what it's like to date within the expat community. So grab a drink, get some snacks, and let's chit chat. During my time in Mexico, I dated 3 men with intention. And for the sake of this video, let's just call them player 1, player 2, and player 3. Let's begin with player 1. He was the first person I dated when I moved to Mexico. I literally met him on day 2. A tall, dark, and handsome brother from Washington, D.C. I went down to Tulum for a friend's birthday celebration. It was a group of us, about 10, and he was one of the guys present. To be honest, I didn't think it was going to be anything more than like a little vacation fling, all right? I was like, okay, we're going to pack him up, ship him back home, and never talk to this guy again. But actually, we ended up exchanging numbers after the trip, and we talked on the phone every day, literally to like 3 o'clock in the morning, like we were back in high school. And ultimately, we fell in love. He came to visit me. I went to visit him. But the distance, as well as the difference in lifestyle, halted our growth, and we ended up calling it quits. Player 2, I met in the gym while living in Playa del Carmen. And during my time in Playa del Carmen, I had a personal trainer. I was literally at the gym 5 days a week at 6 a.m. sharp. And being a bald Black woman, I'm not too hard to miss. So one day, player 2 came up to me and he cracked a joke. He said, "You drop your hair tie." And at the time, I was literally rocking a bald head. So I'm looking at him like, what? And we both just bust out laughing. We exchanged numbers and we ended up going on a date. He was a tall, tatted, and confident Mexican man from Guadalajara. And he was just my type, if I have to be honest. And finally, player 3. I met him in Mexico City. One day I was in Parque Mexico with my dog playing with her, and he was actually sitting next to me. He ended up striking up conversation with me with his broken English, and I learned that he was born and raised in Mexico City, and he was a boxing coach. He invited me to one of his classes for free. So I went and I loved it. I signed up to train with him monthly, and I would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. So the more time we began to spend with one another, the more I got to know him. And honestly, he was so cute, and he started flirting with me. Like one day he was like, "Good job, baby." And I was like, "Baby, okay." So I started to flirt back, and we eventually told one another that we have a crush on each other, and we decided to date. We made our intentions clear. He was looking for a girlfriend. I was looking for a boyfriend. Boom. For the sake of this video, player 1 is going to make his exit because I want to focus on dating across cultures and outside of my race with the Mexican men, which were player 2 and 3. Player 1 was a strong Black man, but that's not the focus of this video. So the one thing I want to say is that why did it take for me to move outside the United States to find me a good Black man? That was mind-blowing, because like if it weren't for the distance and the difference in lifestyles, we would probably still be together right now, okay? Because I really enjoyed dating him. But you know what Gucci Mane said? Boys are like buses. Miss one, next 15, one coming. Listen, I don't make the rules. I just follow them. This was my first time dating Mexican men, and the one thing I noticed between dating player 2 and player 3 is that Mexican men move fast. The one thing I did like is they were upfront about their intentions with me, so there were no guessing games involved. Now, with player 2, he was in his 40s. He already had a 9-year-old son. He really wanted a daughter. He had built a house in Playa del Carmen, and to be honest, he just needed a wife to complete his perfect little story. Now, me on the other hand, I had just moved to Mexico. This is a new chapter chapter for me. I'm a free agent, baby, and I'm trying to see what's out there. So we didn't necessarily align with what we wanted because I was just trying to have fun and he was trying to make me the one. Now, player 3, he told me from the very beginning that he was interested in finding his girlfriend. And I love that because I wanted a boyfriend, but I was not prepared to meet his whole entire family all within a month. Personally, I don't take anyone around my family if we're not official. And even if we are official, I need to make it past a couple months past that representative phase for me to know that you are truly who you say you are. When I met his mom's side of the family, I was invited to his niece's quinceañera, and I had never been to a quinceañera before. So I'm like, what do I wear? Oh my God, what if they don't like me? I had so many questions in my mind, and he casually said there'll be 200 people there. So now I'm scared. But when I arrived, his family was very welcoming. I met so many people, his mom, his sister, his brother, his cousin, his aunts, his uncles, his grandma, everybody. I met everybody, y'all, which was very overwhelming. And as extroverted as I am, I do have a social battery. And I know that Mexicans can party till the sun comes up the next day. So I was nervous. I left at like 3 a.m. and he told me that they stopped around 7 a.m. So I was like, oh my God. Now, when I met his dad's side of the family, I went to his aunt's 60th birthday party, y'all, and I found out that he got some black in him. His aunt was literally a black woman with an afro. And it just reminded me so much of my family because it was just like a neighborhood cookout. They had a band there. Everyone's up dancing, eating. The drunk uncles were in my face saying, oh, I used to live in Texas. It was just, I loved it, y'all. His aunt invited me in and she's like, mi casa, su casa. Like it was such a lovely time, and I couldn't believe that I had met so many family members in such a short time span. Now let's talk about dancing. As a black woman who grew up in the South, we dance down here. I grew up doing all the line dances, electric slide, walk it out, lean with it, rock with it, pool, palace, bankhead, bounce, Cupid, shuffle, you name it, we're doing it, okay? But the one thing I did not grow up doing is salsa dancing, and I was just not prepared for his level of expertise when it comes to salsa dancing. His entire family are such amazing dancers, and it was so intimidating. At the quinceañera, at the 60th birthday party, everyone's up salsa dancing, and I don't know how to do that. So he would teach me 1-2 steps, but you know, it wasn't enough to match his level of expertise. And I even took some lessons in a park just so I can get better at it. But I genuinely feel like that was something that bothered him. I could see it on his face. Like he would, you know, do the easy dances with me for like maybe 5 minutes, and then he would go dance with a cousin or aunt or someone, and they'll be twisting and turning and flipping and dipping, and I'm just like, I don't know how to do this stuff. I didn't grow up doing this. And it just, I don't know. At one point I felt bad about it. I was like, dang, like I can't share this joy he has for salsa dancing with him because I genuinely don't know how to do that. And that was something I never even considered that when it came to dating outside of my race and my culture, but it was definitely something that I noticed. A cultural difference I noticed between player 2 and 3 is that they were not used to a woman who speaks her mind. And when I spoke my mind, it was met with resistance. One of my favorite quotes is, well-behaved women rarely make history. So no, I will not be your cute little arm candy that just looks pretty and doesn't say much. That's not in my personality whatsoever. If I feel offended or bothered by something, I'm going to let you know. And I just noticed that when I did, they both were kind of like, almost like stay in a woman's place. And that was something I was definitely not used to. For example, player 2 low-key yelled at me on the beach in public before. And I literally had to be like, don't you ever raise your voice at me again or you will never see me again. And the look on his face, priceless. Now, player 3, he was a workaholic. And so one day I mentioned to him that I would like him to be more intentional about making time for us to spend. And he literally basically said, deal with it. I'm a workaholic. This is just my life. And I said, okay, well, I don't think this will work for me. I don't think we should date. And now all of a sudden it's, I'll work on it. I will find time. But just a minute ago, it was deal with it. This is my life. I don't think he was expecting me to say, okay, well, I don't want to date you anymore. And so that probably took him off guard, which made him go, hold on now. Wait. I wasn't expecting that. So let me just see what I can do. And I've just realized in general that I don't know what it's like for Mexican men to date Mexican women. I don't know if they're more passive or more submissive, but what I do know is that as an American, we speak our mind. That's just something that I don't intend to ever change about me. So it was something I noticed was definitely a disruptor when dating Mexican men. And the last cultural difference I noticed when dating Mexican men is that they can be a little territorial. Like, I like my man to be protective. I like to know that I'm safe around him, but territorial can kind of sway on the negative side. For example, with player 3, one morning I was walking my dog, as I normally do, and you know how dogs are. They'll go up to other dogs, sniff their butt, play a little bit, and as owners, we'll sit there and talk, as our dogs play. And so that exact situation happened one morning. I'm talking to this other dog owner as our dogs played, and eventually we went our separate ways, which was about 3 or 4 minutes. And later that day, I got a text from player 3 saying, "Hey, do you have a boyfriend?" And I'm like, "No, I literally told you I don't have a boyfriend. You and I both agreed that we are both dating each other to be each other's significant other." And he's like, "Well, I saw you with a tall man walking your dog." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I had to jog my memory. And I remember, oh yeah, I did talk to that stranger this morning with my dog. And I'm like, I didn't even know that guy. I was like, our dogs were playing. That's why we were talking. And he's like questioning me as though I'm lying. And I'm like, whoa, that kind of creeped me out. I'm not going to lie to you, because where even were you? We don't even live on the same side of town. How are you coincidentally in an Uber or a taxi or whatever passing me by while I talk to a stranger at like 8 a.m. in the morning? Like, I don't know. Everything about it weirded me out. It made me feel like maybe he had some trauma that he's not over from a past relationship, or maybe he's just territorial in general. Either way, I was turned off, and it was a huge red flag. As a Black woman who dates outside of her race, it is a non-negotiable for me that the person I'm dating understands the issues I face in this world, and also is aware that the N-word is something that should never come out of their mouth, period. I know there are some Mexicans that like to use the N-word because maybe they feel part of the culture, but I don't tolerate anyone that's not Black saying that word around me. And I dealt with this issue firsthand with player 2. There was a situation once where we picked up his friend from the airport, who happened to be a white guy from Oakland, and he was telling a story and said the N-word, and I immediately got quiet. He looked at me and said, "I'm from Oakland, everybody says it." But at the end of the day, I know that if I were a Black man, that word would have never came out of his mouth. And so after that situation, I told player 2, "Hey, I've never heard you say this word, but I would appreciate if you never use the N-word around me." He assured me that it would never happen. And y'all, I swear, I feel like I jinxed a man, because shortly after I said that to him, he used the word. Now, he didn't drop a hard ER, but he still said the word. He said it very casually in conversation when he was talking about something. And I immediately gave him a stone cold look. Because didn't we just talk about this? Didn't I just tell you to never use that around me? And here you are doing exactly what I told you not to do. And what made it worse is that he didn't understand why I was making a big deal out of it. His literal response was, "Oh, come on." And sir, that was when I knew I had to cut it, cut it, cut it. He was out of there, because I should not have to explain to a 40-something man who speaks perfect English, frequents the US, does business in the US, why this word is offensive when it comes out of the mouth of someone who is not Black. I don't have time to educate you on things you should have learned. And that's something that I'm super stern about. This is a non-negotiable for me. It's a boundary that you cannot cross. And he crossed it, and he was out of there. While both player 2 and player 3 were both born and raised in Mexico, and both happened to be entrepreneurs, with player 2 being a public speaker and player 3 being a boxing coach, they had drastically different financial situations. Player 2 earned a salary that was comparable to that of an American. He built a house from the ground up, and he had financial freedom to travel the world. While player 3 earned a salary that was closer to that of an average Mexican. He lived at home with his family, and his finances were a little bit tighter. So of course, this affected the way they were able to court me. Anytime I was out with player 2, I never had to bring anything other than lip gloss and my house keys. He paid for everything. He was able to take me to nice restaurants, beach clubs, and he even took me to the island of Holbox for my birthday for 3 days, all expenses paid. And this was honestly more in alignment with the dating experience that I'm used to. But my experience with player 3 was completely different. And honestly, I had my reservations from the very beginning, but that man was so fine. I told myself I would not judge a man by his wallet. But I soon began to realize the gap in our lifestyle due to the finances. For example, a 100 peso cab ride, which is about $5 US, was expensive for him. So instead, we took the metro to most places we went, which I didn't have a problem with at all because I hate sitting in traffic in an Uber. And if you know, Mexico City traffic is disgusting, all right? And riding the train allowed us an opportunity to connect. He would teach me Spanish on the train. He would show me parts of the city and tell me about it. He would really involve me in his culture, and it was just so much fun and I loved it. But there were moments where I would want to do something and I knew that maybe he couldn't afford it, and I wanted to say, oh, I'll pay for it, but I didn't want to emasculate him. And so it became difficult on my end to have to constantly compromise on what I would want to do or what we could do based off of his financial situation. And honestly, I don't mind paying, but he didn't like me to pay. And so I didn't want to cross any boundary with him. Deep down, I knew it wouldn't work simply because I am used to a certain level of courtship and I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. But moving forward, I definitely will not date outside of a certain income because I don't want to put strain on the person I'm dating to feel like they have to go beyond their means to make me happy, because that's definitely not the case. I would work that situation by doing cute little date nights at my apartment, like painting or a picnic in the park. But eventually you start to feel the effects of not being able to be courted the way you would like to due to the finances. So the experience was still a lot of fun, but it definitely just reinforced the fact that I do have to date within a certain income range. These dating situations definitely opened my eyes to the colorism and classism issues within Mexico. And I won't even get on that topic right now, but I do have a viral TikTok that I'm going to link in the description for you to be able to watch and also read the comments, okay? Because a lot of people don't like for you to talk about their country or talk about things that happen in their country. But I was very surprised that so many Mexicans, there's over 1,000 comments on that video, were in the comments telling me what I observed is their reality and that there's a lot of truth in it. So definitely check out that video in my description. One thing I'm mindful of when dating outside of my race is, am I being admired or am I being fetishized? And while living in Mexico, I experienced catcalling almost on a daily basis. Men would be like, chocolate, ooh, coco, you want a Mexican boyfriend? And a host of other things. And at first it was funny, even flattering. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was feeling myself like, ooh, I'm cute. But it quickly became a tired old script. And it was annoying, to be quite honest. And I just wasn't a fan of it after a while. Mexican men are not shy about catcalling or even staring. Man, these people will stare so hard at you. And honestly, if you're gonna make me feel uncomfortable, I want you to feel uncomfortable back. So I'm gonna stare back. But some people wouldn't budge. That did nothing for them. It was a lot to deal with at times. So trying to discern if the person I'm interested in likes me for me, or am I just like some kind of bucket list item to do on their list? Like, oh, I'm with a black girl. Like, I'm not your arm candy. I'm a human being. And so when it comes to player 2 and player 3, player 2, I genuinely feel like he liked me. I could tell through his actions, and we naturally connected through our shared interests of fitness, travel, and dogs. He had a Doberman. I have a pit bull. We would literally wake up for sunrise walks on the beach with our dogs. And he wasn't fazed by the fact that I was a black woman. He had dated women from various cultural backgrounds in his past. So we connected and he liked me for me. Player 3, I don't know anymore, because I do feel like our initial connection was authentic, but over time I started to notice red flags. All of his compliments had a sexual undertone to them or a fetish undertone, and I don't like that. It makes me feel so uncomfortable. And I love compliments, but like, why can't you just call me beautiful sometimes? Like, why does everything have to connect to something sexual about my body or my skin tone, comparing me to chocolate or things like that? Like, I don't like it whatsoever. And he also talked about how he loved that Black genetics are so like athletic, and he would love to have a kid with a Black person. And then one day he ultimately just said, I want you to have my babies. And I'm just like, slow down, Buster. I don't even know you that well. Like, absolutely not. So after a while, I started to feel like I was just like a check box on his to-do list. Like, oh, I dated a Black girl before, and you're not gonna trap me. That's one thing you're not gonna do, baby, because I know how to run. I know how to get out of there. And so I definitely had to politely let him know that I was no longer interested in dating him and that we'll be better off as friends. Overall, being a minority in Mexico while dating will garner you quite a bit of attention, especially if you're attractive. It is imperative that you use discernment to make sure that the person you're dating likes you for you and they're not fetishizing you, because it's such a disgusting feeling to realize that someone is only dating you for ulterior motives when you are genuinely trying to connect. So definitely stay situationally aware. Mexico has a large immigrant/expat community with plenty of WhatsApp, Facebook, and meetup groups to join to meet like-minded people with similar backgrounds. And while tapping into these communities can make adjusting to life abroad easier, it also tends to influence our dating patterns, with many people dating within the expat circle. Women far outweigh men when it comes to traveling, with 64% of travelers being women compared to just 36% of travelers being men. This imbalance gives a small percentage of men a huge dating pool to choose from, which means that someone you're interested in may have dated or talked to someone you may know. And due to this statistic alone, I do not like to date within the expat community because I don't like sharing. No me gusta. I have heard of so many love triangles within the expat community, and I have no desire to create my own. Instead, I like to meet men in person, and I have tried dating apps a time or two. Tinder and Bumble are the two most popular American dating apps in Mexico. And yeah, I really don't like dating apps because I hate swiping on human beings as though they're e-commerce. And I also despise repetitive small talk. So dating apps for me are quite the annoyance, and I like to steer clear from them. And I'm so grateful that the men I dated in Mexico, I literally met in person. And this is not an attempt for me to de-influence you from dating within the expat community. What I am suggesting is that you vet whomever you're interested in. It doesn't hurt to ask around. Get a little background research done to make sure that this person's intentions aligns with your desires. And ladies, specifically, I'm warning you to do this because of the rise of passport bros. If you don't know what a passport bro is, just watch a couple YouTube videos, ladies. You're going to want to steer clear away from men like that, because we all know that in the beginning, people present their representative and you don't realize you're in deep with the wrong person until months down the line. So protect your heart. It is your most fragile possession, all right? So do you, but be safe, be aware, and have fun. Overall, my experience dating abroad was positive because I learned what I desire in my next relationship, what I absolutely will not tolerate, and also how to navigate cultural differences. And personally, I think the best way to learn a new culture is through love. And while I didn't find my person in Mexico, the experience was still valuable. Now, the one thing I did take from my situation is that I definitely have to live in a larger city, because living in a small beach town like Playa del Carmen, the dating pool is tiny, the options are few, and you have a higher likelihood to run into someone that you may not have had a positive dating experience with on multiple occasions due to it being a small town. And nobody wants that, okay? We want you out of sight, out of mind, all right? So if you're thinking about moving abroad, definitely pick a larger city if you have intentions on dating, so that you can have a lot of options. Now, if you made it to the end of this video, I do want to mention that I'm still single and you can email me, but thank you so much for supporting my video. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next upload. Peace.